I never thought one summer could change everything. My name is Anaya, and this is the story of how a seemingly ordinary break from school turned into the most unforgettable and shocking chapter of my life. It all started when my parents decided to take a 2-week trip to Istanbul to celebrate their anniversary. I was 17 at the time, old enough to stay home alone, or so they believed. But they didn't leave me entirely on my own. My cousin Zion, who was just a year older than me, had flown in from Lahore for a summer vacation and was going to stay with us during their trip. The arrangement seemed harmless. After all, Zion and I had grown up together, shared childhood memories, and always treated each other like siblings. That's what everyone assumed. That's what I assumed. The first few days were normal, comfortable, even. We binged Netflix late into the night, ordered food from our favorite takeout places, and stayed up talking about college, relationships, and what we wanted from life. Zion had changed. He was taller, leaner, more confident than the shy boy I remembered from previous summers. There was something different in the way he carried himself. And maybe, just maybe, something different in the way he looked at me too. At first, I brushed it off as imagination, or maybe just the intimacy of being alone in the house with someone who had once been more like a brother. But it wasn't long before the tension between us became undeniable. One night, during a power outage, we lit candles and sat on the balcony watching the stars. The warm breeze, the silence, and the dim candlelight made everything feel strangely romantic. We started sharing secrets, things we had never told anyone else. I told him about my insecurities, about how I never felt like I was enough, even though everyone assumed I had it all together. He listened with such focus, such tenderness, that I felt exposed in a way I never had before. And then, something happened. Something neither of us had expected. He reached for my hand and held it. I froze. He must have sensed my hesitation because he quickly let go, apologizing. But the damage, or maybe the magic, had already been done. From that night on, everything changed. The air between us was heavier, charged with something neither of us dared speak aloud. We started avoiding eye contact. Every brush of the hand, every glance felt like it carried hidden meaning. I kept telling myself it was wrong. We were cousins. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. But feelings don't care about rules. A few days later, we had a movie night. I wore my favorite oversized hoodie and no makeup, assuming it would help keep things neutral between us. But when Zion saw me, he smiled in a way that made my heart flutter. We sat close, our shoulders touching. At one point, he looked at me and whispered, "You're beautiful, you know that?" I laughed it off nervously, but my cheeks burned. "Don't joke," I said. "I'm serious," he replied, his voice low. "I've always thought so." The room felt like it was spinning. I stood up, pretending to need water, but really, I just needed to breathe. When I returned, he was still sitting there, eyes on me, waiting. I tried to ignore the intensity between us, but as the days passed, it became impossible. One night, it all came to a head. A thunderstorm rolled in and I got scared, something that always happened during heavy rain. Zion noticed. "Come here," he said, pulling me into a hug. I should have pulled away. I should have said no. But I didn't. I stayed in his arms, and for the first time in my life, I felt safe in a way I couldn't explain. That night, we kissed. It was soft, hesitant at first, as if we were both unsure of what we were doing. But once the line was crossed, there was no going back. We spent the rest of the night talking about everything. How confusing it all was, how wrong it felt, but how right it also seemed. "What does this make us?" I asked. He didn't have an answer. Neither did I. The days that followed were filled with stolen glances, subtle touches, and the kind of closeness that blurred every boundary. We still acted normal during the day, but every night, we returned to that world where we were more than just cousins. We didn't tell anyone. We couldn't. We knew what we were doing would be considered shameful in our culture. But hiding it made it feel even more intimate, more intense. We were living in a bubble that would burst the moment our parents returned. And burst it did. My mother returned a day early. We hadn't expected her until the next evening, but due to a flight change, she arrived that morning, quietly, without warning. I was in the kitchen making breakfast in one of Zion's shirts, completely unaware that she was standing at the door, watching. The silence, when I turned and saw her, was deafening. Her eyes moved from my face to the shirt I was wearing, then to the plate of breakfast I had made for two. She didn't say a word. Later that evening, the questions came, one after another.